Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles. We're thrilled to have you join our community of love, heartache, and life's twists and turns. Your subscription means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more captivating tales and stories. It sounds like I had a beautiful love story with Kathy, from my initial crush to our eventual engagement. We both worked hard during that year to save money for our master's degrees and our respective career paths. Our families were supportive, and everything seemed to be falling into place. Our wedding day was a joyous occasion, filled with love and promises for the future. After getting married, Kathy and I continued our education and careers while navigating the challenges of life together. We supported each other through the ups and downs, and for a while, it felt like we were building a life together that we had always dreamed of. Kathy's determination and passion continued to inspire me, and I was grateful for the love we shared. But as life often does, it threw unexpected challenges at us. Kathy and I faced a difficult time when I discovered that she had cheated on me, which shattered my world. It was a painful and shocking revelation, and it left me in a state of sadness and confusion. This situation drastically changed my outlook on life. I went from being a lively and optimistic person to feeling lost and hurt. I couldn't help but sulk about what had happened to me and wonder how something so heartbreaking could occur in a relationship that had once felt so strong. The pain of being cheated on by someone I loved deeply, my girlfriend turned wife, was a heavy burden to bear. I began to question many things and reflect on the path my life had taken. The optimism and happiness that used to define me were replaced by a profound sense of betrayal and sadness. I hope to find a way to heal and move forward, but it's undoubtedly a challenging journey. The love I had for Kathy, her dreams and determination, and the beautiful memories we shared will always hold a special place in my heart, but coming to terms with the betrayal is a painful process that I must face. Kathy had suggested a small wedding with only a few relatives and friends, but I opposed the idea and insisted on a big, grand celebration of our marriage. She was concerned about the expenses and didn't want to drain her savings or burden her mom, but I promised her that I would take care of everything, and I was determined to keep that promise. So, I used the money I had saved for my master's program to arrange the best of everything for our wedding, and Kathy was happy that I was going to such lengths to make her happy. At the age of 30 and 26, Kathy and I got married with high hopes for our future and careers. However, things didn't go as smoothly as I had envisioned after the wedding. I had wanted to go on a honeymoon, but Kathy's university classes were about to begin soon, and she wasn't willing to miss them. On the other hand, I hadn't enrolled in the master's program as planned due to a substantial dip in my savings account caused by the extravagant wedding expenses. Despite this setback, I didn't regret my decision and chose to continue working while planning to enroll in a master's program at a later time. Kathy was supportive of my decision, and our future plans started to take shape. Kathy was enthusiastic about pursuing her PhD in anthropology and couldn't contain her excitement. She was like a child eager to return to school after a summer break, and she would talk endlessly about her professors, classes, peers, and her research. I enjoyed our conversations, even if they sometimes became too technical for me to fully grasp. I never interrupted her because her passion was contagious, and I wanted to be a supportive husband. However, a few months later, things between us began to change. Kathy spent more and more time at the university. She would sit in the library, reading books, and sifting through research papers for her thesis. When she returned at night, she was utterly exhausted, and all she wanted was a peaceful night of rest. I didn't mind this at all, but soon, she started coming home even later and would fall asleep immediately upon hitting the pillow. Feeling the strain of our limited time together, I decided to talk to her one Sunday. I asked her to come home early so that we could have a conversation or go out together. However, instead of having a calm discussion, I ended up lashing out at her, expressing my frustration at feeling neglected and alone. She was hurt by my words, and our heated argument revealed how we had both been bottling up our feelings. She accused me of not supporting her in her academic pursuits, and I accused her of neglecting her responsibilities as a wife. This argument left us both deeply wounded, and we didn't speak to each other for several days. I was in a difficult place after the heated argument with Kathy. I wanted to apologize, but I waited for her to make the first move and break the ice. However, Kathy was incredibly stubborn and continued to ignore me, treating me like a stranger. In response, I started working overtime at the office and hung out with my friends more often. The loneliness at home was unbearable, and I couldn't stand watching TV or mindlessly scrolling through social media while waiting for Kathy to return. Eventually, I mustered the courage to apologize to Kathy, and she forgave me, but the issue of her coming home late persisted. Whenever I expressed my longing for her or a desire to spend time together, she would become irritated and tell me to grow up, suggesting that I find hobbies and not act so clingy. She often cited examples of her peers and professors who were focused on their studies and careers, and how they didn't long for the presence of their spouses. I had to admit that she had a point. I was acting like a child, constantly pleading with her to stay with me. But it was partly because I hated being alone. I had always loved the buzz of a room filled with people, laughter, and conversation. Sitting alone was akin to torture for me. I needed something or someone to help me combat the boredom. A friend suggested I get a pet, either a cat or a dog, to keep me company. I loved the idea of having a pet to reduce my loneliness and keep me occupied. I discussed it with Kathy, and she was on board with the idea. We initially thought about getting a pair of cats, but Kathy was allergic to cat hair. Then, I suggested having a hamster, but Kathy proposed getting a dog. We ultimately agreed on a Malamute breed. I was quite anxious about this because I had never had a pet dog before, let alone this breed. I knew very little about them except that they resembled wolves. With the help of a friend, I bought the dog and brought it home. The Malamute was massive and strong, and I named him Romeo because of his wolf-like appearance. He seemed aggressive, ready to pounce and bite anyone who irritated him. However, despite his intimidating demeanor, he displayed remarkable loyalty to me and treated Kathy, my wife, as second only to himself. One day, while I was on a walk with Romeo, we encountered a neighbor's dog that was not on a leash. The other dog, a large and powerful breed, seemed agitated and started to approach us aggressively. Despite my efforts to maintain a safe distance, the situation quickly escalated. In a matter of seconds, the neighbor's dog lunged at me, attempting to bite. I tried to shield myself and protect Romeo, but I found myself in a perilous situation. It was at this critical moment that Romeo, who had always displayed a calm and protective demeanor, sprang into action. With a deep growl and a sudden burst of energy, he positioned himself between me and the attacking dog. Romeo's bravery and loyalty were on full display as he stood his ground, ready to defend me at any cost. His ferocious appearance, which had caused concern in the past, now served as a deterrent to the aggressive dog. He barked loudly and made it clear that he would not back down. Thankfully, Romeo's intervention gave the neighbor's dog pause, allowing its owner to regain control and pull their dog away. While the situation was intense and nerve-wracking, Romeo's loyalty and protective instincts saved me from a potentially dangerous attack. It was a powerful reminder of the bond we shared and his unwavering dedication to keeping me safe. Our decision to have Romeo trained as a guard dog was motivated by a series of incidents that had occurred over time. There were instances where our home had been broken into, and we felt the need for added security. In one particular incident, we had an unsettling break-in when intruders entered our property. The mere presence of these individuals had caused us great distress, and it was apparent that our family's safety was at risk. Romeo, although loyal and protective, didn't have the specialized training to handle such situations effectively. We realized that to enhance our security, Romeo needed to be trained by a professional. So, we sought the expertise of a skilled dog trainer who could help him develop the necessary skills to guard our home effectively. This decision was based on our genuine concern for our family's well-being, and we were committed to ensuring Romeo's training was comprehensive and tailored to our specific security needs. It required bringing him in for 1-hour sessions twice a week. I was fully committed to the plan and agreed to it. I shared this with Kathy, and she inquired about the schedule and timing, showing some interest in Romeo. However, I was unaware that her curiosity was related to something else entirely. Kathy had become emotionally detached from me, and despite my efforts to talk to her, she dismissed me by saying I was acting like an immature boy. It hurt when she compared me to her professors and peers who were deeply engrossed in their studies. I realized that not everyone wants to dive deeply into a particular subject and make their lives revolve around it. I felt like Kathy was living in her own world, thinking that I was foolish for wanting to be romantic and have strong communication in our relationship. I continued with Romeo's sessions, even though it was tough to see him muzzled for his own good. The routine of taking him to these sessions became something I looked forward to, as it seemed to be one of the few activities that kept me occupied while Kathy was increasingly unavailable. One day, to my surprise, I returned home, and Kathy was there, which was unusual because she was never at home in the evenings. I noticed that the bed was in disarray, with the bedsheets creased and coming out. When I asked her about it, she casually explained that she had taken a nap and slept like a baby for 3 hours, tossing and turning in bed. I believed her at the time and didn't think much of the unkempt bed. Looking back, I now realize that I was naive and didn't connect the dots. It didn't occur to me that my wife might have been involved in an affair. The signs were there, but I was oblivious to them. Kathy's behavior had become increasingly strange. She exhibited signs of anxiety, and her reactions to phone calls were particularly telling. She would visibly jump when her phone rang, and her disappointment from not receiving the expected call was evident on her face. This occurred repeatedly, and I couldn't help but ask her who she was waiting for. Her reaction was as if her secret had been revealed, and she appeared shocked and pale. But she quickly laughed it off, offering an explanation that a professor was not happy with some of her past work and was awaiting comments on the latest assignment. I trusted her explanation, as I understood how dedicated she was to her studies and her university. I made an effort not to disturb Kathy during her university hours, but there were times when she returned home in an angry or depressed mood. She would get upset about minor things, yell at me for small issues, or express her frustration if Romeo did something wrong. On other occasions, she would simply lie on the bed and cry. I always comforted her and asked what was bothering her, assuring her that she could count on me. But every time, she gave me the same response: her professor had a grudge against her, and no matter what she did, he wasn't happy with her. I suggested that she should report his discriminatory behavior to the university management, and she agreed, but she never took any action. Romeo's journey towards harnessing his impressive bite force was an incredible transformation to witness. There were instances that highlighted just how far he had come. In one particularly memorable incident, Romeo found himself in a situation where he needed to protect himself and me from larger, more imposing individuals. His training and progress had bolstered his confidence and assertiveness. When confronted by these bigger adversaries, Romeo showcased his newfound strength and self-assuredness. With a combination of precision and power, he demonstrated his ability to effectively subdue these larger opponents using his remarkable bite force. This remarkable transformation was a testament to the consistent effort put into his training, and it exemplified the bond that had developed between Romeo and myself. I continued attending all of Romeo's sessions, no matter how tired I was, even though it took 4 to 5 hours of my time, including the drive and waiting. However, one Wednesday, I took Romeo to the training center only to find out that his session had been rescheduled. I hadn't checked my phone and was unaware of the change, so I returned home after driving for over an hour due to heavy traffic. Upon returning home, Romeo began to exhibit signs of unease, as if he sensed something unusual in the house. I had his leash tightened securely around my hand to prevent him from running off. We both proceeded to the kitchen, where we were about to discover something that would change our lives for the worse. When I walked into the kitchen, I was met with a shocking sight. There, in my own home, I saw the back of a naked man intimately engaged with a woman. They were so absorbed in their activities that they didn't notice my presence at first. My immediate reaction was to yell at the man for trespassing into my house and engaging in such behavior on my kitchen counter. The man and the woman were startled, and they turned around, shocked to hear my voice. I couldn't believe my eyes when I realized that the woman involved in this affair was Kathy. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I was overwhelmed with a mix of emotions. I demanded an explanation from her, asking what on earth she was doing. In response, she pushed the man away and hurriedly began to collect her clothes. The man fumbled to put on his pants. I couldn't contain my anger and frustration as I confronted Kathy. She insisted that she could explain everything and pleaded with me to calm down. In the midst of this heated argument, Romeo, our Malamute, was agitated by the fact that a different male was not only intruding in our home but trying to breed with a female. That had pissed him off. I thought I had Romeo securely leashed, but I was mistaken. In a burst of aggression, Romeo lunged at the man and bit him mercilessly in several places, including his testicles. The attack was so severe that Romeo pulled away part of the man's private parts. Kathy was horrified to witness the man bleeding profusely, and Romeo continued to attack him relentlessly. I rushed to intervene and regain control over Romeo, but in the process, I forgot all my training and just tried to pull him away from the other guy. That resulted in Romeo getting more agitated and the other guy received more bites, and I too got bit on my hand in the process. Despite the chaos and the injuries inflicted on the man and myself, Kathy's immediate concern was to call 911 for the man's condition. I was left in disbelief and shock. I demanded answers from Kathy, asking who the man was. She revealed that he was her professor. The revelation left me feeling sick to my stomach, as everything began to make sense. Kathy's long hours at the university, her frequent smiles at her phone screen, and her tumultuous emotions all fell into place. Kathy confessed that she had developed a crush on her professor that she couldn't resist. Over time, that crush had evolved into a powerful love that she couldn't control. I was disgusted beyond words, struggling to comprehend how she could fall for a man who was 50 years old, and in my imagination, I pictured him as someone who had likely been involved with many women like Kathy. In a fit of anger, I left the house, unable to even look at Kathy's face. I returned to my car, attempting to calm Romeo, who was still in an agitated state. In my distress, I called a friend for help in taking Romeo to the vet to soothe him. Upon returning home, I discovered that an ambulance had taken the professor to the hospital to treat his wounds. Kathy was sitting in a corner with a vacant expression on her face. I made the difficult decision to part ways with Kathy and proceeded to my room to pack my belongings. At that moment, I believed that the nightmare was finally coming to an end. Little did I know that it was just the beginning, and an even more horrifying ordeal was awaiting me. Shortly after, I received a call from the sheriff, requesting that I come to the hospital. This unexpected call left me shocked and confused, as I couldn't fathom why I, who had not been directly involved in the incident, would be summoned to the hospital. Upon arriving at the hospital, I was informed that the professor's lawyer had filed legal charges against my dog for the vicious attack that had caused severe injuries. The gravity of the situation began to sink in, and I realized that Romeo's actions had brought about an unexpected and complex legal battle that I would have to face. The doctor's grim prognosis about the extent of the damage to the professor's testicles left me in shock and disbelief. I couldn't fathom how my seemingly innocent dog, Romeo, had been involved in such a distressing incident. Desperate to explain the situation to the sheriff, I shared that Romeo was a well-trained dog and has been undergoing his guard dog training, and the other man was an intruder. However, the sheriff informed me that I should seek legal representation to defend my case, signaling the seriousness of the situation and the legal challenges that lay ahead. In an effort to save Romeo and myself from the looming legal case, I promptly hired a competent lawyer to defend our case. My lawyer, understanding the complexity of the situation, began to build a strong defense for us. We argued that Romeo's aggression had been a result of specific triggers and that I had been diligently working with him at a professional training facility. The legal proceedings, however, took a challenging turn. The court considered the severity of the injuries inflicted upon the professor and the potential threat posed by Romeo to society. Despite my lawyer's best efforts to demonstrate Romeo's gentle demeanor and my commitment to his training, the court ultimately decided that, in the interest of public safety, Romeo would be taken away for evaluation. The decision was heartbreaking for me, as I had grown deeply attached to Romeo, and we had made significant progress in his training. The court's ruling meant that Romeo would be removed from my custody and placed in an environment where he would no longer be a perceived threat to others. It was a painful and emotional ordeal, and I could only hope that Romeo would find a safe and caring home where he could live out the rest of his days in peace and without posing any harm to anyone. The anger and resentment I felt towards Kathy for the ordeal Romeo and I had gone through were overwhelming. I wanted her to understand the suffering she had caused and to experience a taste of the pain that had become a part of my life. In my quest for justice, I decided to take action. I visited Kathy's university and filed a formal complaint against her and her professor. I provided a detailed account of their affair, highlighting that they had been engaged in a full-fledged romantic relationship that had involved multiple instances of intimacy, including at my own home. I recounted the shocking scene I had witnessed in my kitchen to the university's management. The management conducted an inquiry and ultimately confirmed the veracity of my claims. The consequences were severe. Kathy was expelled from the institution, and her professor faced termination from his employment. The university had a strict policy against fostering romantic relationships, and Kathy's actions had not only violated this policy but also jeopardized her dream of pursuing a PhD. As more than half a year passed since those tumultuous events, I couldn't help but hope that this separation from Kathy would allow us both to move forward, heal, and find our own paths in life. After the tumultuous events that led to Romeo being taken away, I was left heartbroken and missed him dearly. The separation was emotionally painful for both of us. I continued to hope for a reunion with my loyal and beloved companion. 2 long weeks passed, during which Romeo was placed in at a dog shelter and was evaluated. Then, one fortunate day, I received a call from the shelter. They had identified Romeo through his microchip and contacted me to inform me of his whereabouts and that I can now take him back as he is not a threat to anyone and had acted just out of shock and partly due to his instincts as a guard dog. It was a moment of overwhelming joy and relief. I rushed to the animal shelter to be reunited with my beloved Malamute. When I arrived, I could hardly contain my excitement. As soon as Romeo saw me, his reaction was a testament to the depth of our bond. He let out an enthusiastic howl and wagged his tail vigorously, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. His eyes sparkled with recognition and happiness. The moment I approached him, Romeo leaped into my arms, showering me with affectionate licks and nudges. It was a tearful and heartwarming reunion, and my heart swelled with gratitude for having my loyal companion back by my side. Romeo's exuberance and the sheer joy in his eyes were a clear indication that he had missed me as much as I had missed him. Our reunion marked a new beginning, and we were both determined to make the most of the second chance we had been given to share our lives together. The bond between us had grown even stronger during our time apart, and it was a moment of pure happiness and relief to have him back in my life. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.